Okay, I got a seal leaking on my hydronic system. I ordered a seal kit and I'm going to try to replace the seal. So I'm going to go ahead and take the steering wheel off. I just loosened the 3/4 inch nut and then I put a wheel puller on here. I don't know if it's the right way to do it, but that's how I'm going to do it. And instead of trying to just yank on it or whatever. Okay, I just barely put any pressure on it and it just popped right loose. And you can kind of see where it's been leaking right down in here. And it's been coming, just running right down onto my feet practically. Okay, here's the directions for the seal kit. Mine is a HS05 series. Actually, I take that back. Mine's an H50 series. That must be the seal kit part number HS05. And I don't know how far I got to take this down. All I really wanted to do is just replace the seal that keeps it from leaking, which is probably the main seal. So, but it doesn't look like you can get right to it, so I'm going to have to kind of take it apart a little bit. And the instructions they give you are just for bleeding the system after you're done. So really, they just give you an exploded diagram. And there's quite a few O-rings in there. So I don't know if I'll use all of them or not. Now, before I got started, before I tear anything apart, I relieved all the pressure out of the fill reservoir. They had it was about 20 pounds of pressure. It should be about 45. And it says don't let it get anywhere below 2 inches of fluid. So if the fluid goes down more than 2 inches, so I've got some in there, but I need to probably put a little bit more. And I'm probably going to lose some up on the helm. Okay, so I got a little bit of steering fluid here. I'm going to put a little bit in there so it doesn't get down past the mark, which they say is 2 inches. Now mine has a pump on it to pump the pressure up. There's also a Schrader valve on the gauge that you can pump it up with an air thing, but it says do not over pump it up past 50 pounds. So I just use this little hand thing to pump it up. The reason I'm doing all this, and I think what I did is I was replacing the motor for the autopilot, and when I did, it kind of let fluid out, and then when I put new fluid in and pressurized it again, it's caused the seal to leak up there on the flybridge. It had already been leaking before, just barely any coming out of it, but once I put new fluid in and pressurized it again, it started leaking real bad. Since it doesn't look like I can get to the seal from this side, I'm going to take, it looks like the back screws in with no nut on it. So I think I can just back the screws out and take the whole thing off here. So we'll see what happens. So I'm not sure what's going to happen when I get all these screws out, but I just got this one last one to take out, and I think it's just hopefully just going to not fall apart and just come down out of there so I can start taking the rest apart. Alright, so I just unscrewed these big screws that just thread through this thread in. There's no nut on the back of them, and it just dropped right down out of there. So it looks like I'm just going to be undoing these 4 bolts to take that apart, but I'm not sure if I'm going to have fluid coming out everywhere, so I might try to get it a little more elevated to work on it. So these are 1/2 inch bolts that I'm taking out the back. Okay, so I just pulled the steering unit off. I got a little bit of oil that dripped out, but not a whole lot. I'm sure I'll be bleeding all this back, but it looks like there's 3 O-rings right there that I probably should replace, and I see 3 in the bag. And then the rest of the O-rings I'm betting are down inside of the steering column. So I'll look at that next. Okay, I took it apart and this came out of the column, so there's looks like bearings down in there or something, and then there's these valves I'm taking that have little springs down in the bottom of them, and then there's a pin that fell out, which I have no idea where that came from, so I have to look at the exploded diagram and see where that goes back in. But I think right now I just need snap ring pliers to get the shaft out of there to get to the seal that's up in there, the part that's leaking up through there. Okay, so I just used my dental pick and popped these 3 loose, and I'm getting ready to put new ones on. Okay, the new O-rings went on nice and smooth. Looks like they fit, so they must have given me the right kit. Hopefully, still kind of questioning whether I got the right kit or not, but I think the next step is to start taking this column apart. It looks like there's some, according to the exploded diagram, looks like there's some ball bearings, which are probably check valves, and probably springs, who knows. But I need some snap ring pliers. Okay, so I found you don't have to undo the snap ring, you can just pop the shaft right out, and the seals are up in there. You can kind of see where the bad spot is up in there. If you can see it on the phone or not. It looks like a tear or something there. So now I'm hoping that plate with the bearings in there can just come out so I can get to the seals. So I don't think I can get to them from the front. Okay, I popped the bearings out. There's 9 of them, but I don't think they need to come out, but at least I don't want it to fall out and lose it. And I don't think that plastic thing, it looks like it's got pins in there holding that plastic in, so that back thing's not going to come out. So I popped this seal loose. I'm going to try to pop the rest of them out of there with a dental pick. Okay. That one's all broken up. It's literally all cracked up inside there. Okay, looks like this came out and the O-ring came out. So it looks like this is going to be the one that goes back in. It has an O-ring in it. So this was a top piece. This was the O-ring that was under this. So it went just like this. So now the question is, trying to get it all back up in there. So it looks like I'm going to try to stuff this one with the O-ring in it, and then this other one was just the lip going up like that. So I got the first one down in there. Basically you get it all the way in there and there's a little bit sticking out, and I just pushed it on down in there with a screwdriver. Now I'm going to get the top piece in there. That.
You need these now, babe?
A little bit of oil on them.
No. Nope.
Huh?
I don't think he does.
Hey, look at that. I think we got a good seal again. That might be a little tight pushing down in there now.
Did you put some oil on it?
Yeah, it's kind of oily. The keyway is pretty easy to get in after this is in there. Just with the new seals, I bet that's going to have to be pressed down in there pretty tight. I don't think it's just going to drop right in there. Oh, that could have been wrong.
Can you spin it? Feel pretty tight.
It's real tight. I
There
can't
you
turn
go.
it. Too late.
are you looking for? Pen?
Oh, there it is. I see it. According to the exploded diagram, I don't know if it matters. I don't think it matters.
Which side?
Number 13 just says key,
Yep.
and that's that one.
It shows it on the same side as the notch on the other side. See that notch there
Mm-hmm.
for the other key? And
Okay.
notice it on the same side as that.
Good point. Yeah. The keyway goes on the same side in here as the keyway out here, and the hole is tapered, so the keyway comes in this side, and then you can kind of push it in there and it holds it, it presses it into place, and it should hold it in place when you go to put it back together to line up with these. These I'll probably have to go back together like this so that all my valves don't fall out with all the springs and stuff. Thinking, I don't know, there's a notch here, there's a square notch here, and I don't know if that's supposed to line up, if that's supposed to be one side or the other, because this is keyed both sides. So I'll put that square towards the keyed side, I guess.
Yeah.
I don't know if it shows anything on the paperwork. That, and I don't know what this was, 21 and 22. 21, it says quad ring, February 1986 in older Helms. 22,
86.
polypack seal. I'm guessing that was the seal with the O-ring in it.
Mm-hmm.
They're showing the O-ring in there, I believe. So I'm
Yeah.
thinking that's this seal and it has the O-ring in it. This one was a different type of seal. But I don't see anything about the keyway on this. This, I'm looking at this piece here.
Yeah, I don't see any markings.
I think I got a fit now because I can, all
Yep.
those valves were spring loaded, so I can feel it bottoming out and hitting the bearings up there. So now the trick is going to be trying to slide that onto there and getting this X lined up. This thing comes apart further, but I'm not going to go any further with it. This thing here has got some hex bolts. Some hex bolts in here,
Yeah.
and it looks like there's more check valves. All I did was replace these O-rings, and I'm just going to slide it back on there. And I see the X is over here on this bottom corner, which is, looking at it backwards, it's back here on the bottom corner. And then this is going to be, X is going to be on the opposite side of that. Right over here like that. I'm gonna loop it up with some oil. I wonder if I ought to pour fluid down in here to kind of fill in the valves, because this was full of fluid when I took it apart.
Might help with the prime.
And that's what I'm thinking. So my fluid is down. Alright, so I'm gonna go ahead and put some fluid in here just to help with the bleeding. I don't know if this is what you're supposed to do or not. It didn't give me any instructions, so We're just kind of winging it. So my X is over there, this one's over here.
Thread them
And
down.
then I got my 4 bolts that bolt to the back. And I'm going to double check my X's too after I'm done with this, but it looks like that's exactly how it goes because this sticker was straight up and down. Started those straight. Alright, I got the bolts tightened up. I want to make sure the X's are in the right spot back here. This one's over here on the side and this one's to the back, so they're opposite of each other. X isn't really right in the right exact spot. That X is actually behind the hole, so it looks like it though the X is parallel with the back, which is where I'm at here. It's exactly parallel. So I guess I'll tighten those bolts back down. And then we're about ready to start leading it. Probably finish tightening them once it's up in there so I can crank on them. I might just stick it up in there and just kind of put one screw in it to hold it.
A couple of them. Of course, that would be a flathead screw.
Yeah, there's no bolts or nuts on the back of these. It's literally just makes this whole column easy to come off. You don't have to climb underneath there and get a nut off the back. So they threaded the cylinder back behind there. I don't think I'll put all the screws in yet, just for the fact that I gotta get to those other ones in the back, and there's all kinds of wires and switches, so I don't know if I'm gonna be able to get in there.
All right.
There's also a keyway that goes on here for the steering. Alright. Where Mary usually comes in.
There you go.
Honey! I'd have just put some fluid down in there and
Start cranking.
start cranking back and forth, see if it's actually just, the air will definitely, I mean, it'll work its way out, but sometimes I have to go down below maybe as I'm going back and forth here. Go down below and leave the cylinder. Okay, for bleeding, it says to fill the reservoir up about 2/3 to 3/4. I actually went a little too far. And then there's 2 1/2-inch brass nuts you have to back off. Okay, now I got some light. There's 2 1/2-inch brass nuts. It says to unscrew those. Those are purge valves underneath the reservoir. And then it says put the hex back on the top, tighten it up, and pressurize it up to 35-40 pounds. And then we're ready to start bleeding it. Okay, so I pumped it up to between 35 and 40. So now I'm going to go up on the helm and bleed it from the highest point. And the purge valves are undone in the back, then below the reservoir. Okay, so now it says underneath, back here behind the steering wheel, you got S and P, and we've got the system pressurized. Now we've got 35-40 pounds in it. So it says back the hose up until you get fluid, and that should let the air out. And I hear air. I don't know if you can hear that or not. Okay, I don't hear any more air, and I got nothing but fluid. Hey Jeff, what's the pressure at now?
Just under 30.
Okay, I let quite a bit of air out.
Yeah. 28.
Oh, that was kind of messy. I had a lot of air came out, and I kind of made a mess. You want to pressurize it again, I suppose? Got the air out of the line back here, and I used a 13/16 up underneath the helm to loosen those up. So now we're going to go down below and bleed the cylinders down below off the flybridge to the rudder down there. That's the rudder. And this I'm using a 3/4 inch. I don't see any air in that one.
Nope, no bubbling. Cool.
Which I think all the air would be up at the top, you'd think.
Yeah.
Because it really didn't. There's no air in there.
Nope. Cool.
Okay, now it says turn the steering wheel 60 times in one direction. I'm on number 17, and it says no faster than 2 seconds. 17. 18. 2 to 3 seconds per revolution. 19. 20. 21. 22. 23. 24. 25. 6. No. 7. 28. 29. 30. 31. 32. 33. 34. 35. 36. 37. 38. 39. 40. 41. 42. 43. 44. 45. 46. 47. 48. 49. 50. 51. 52. 53. 54. Okay, I did 60 revolutions. The rudder went all the way to one side, so it went all the way to one side, and stopped and allowed me just to keep spinning the wheel 60 times. Okay, after doing that, I know I've got plenty of fluid in there, but it does say keep checking your fluid to see if you've got fluid. I know I've got a ton in there because I kind of overfilled it and I didn't get much air out, so I'm not going to bother checking that fluid. But the next step, it says to go ahead and bleed these one more time, which is the rudder cylinder. Okay, so I just bled those again, no air. We're going to go 60 revolutions in the other direction. And then I think when we tighten those valves underneath the reservoir, that'll give me my steering back all the way. So here we go in the other direction 60 times. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Alright, so what I'm going to do now is depressurize the system. And then I'm going to check my fluid level, and then I'm going to close those 2 valves down on the bottom, and theoretically I should have my steering back, so we'll see. I just noticed on this pump when I was taking it out of that reservoir, this O-ring's getting a little chafed up from taking it on and off so much. So I'll probably have to get a new O-ring. It didn't come with one in the kit. I had extra O-rings, but none of those fit. So here's my fluid level. I suppose they could use a little bit more in there, but not too much.
This reservoir should be 2/3 to 3/4 full.
Okay, well, it looks like it's a little more than 3/4, so it says 2/3 or 3/4 full is where it needs to be. So I guess there needs to be some airspace in there. So I'll leave it like that. So I got that back on there. We've got it pumped up to about, it said 25 to 30. We're just barely under 30. I'll leave it there, and I'm going to go close those 2 purge valves in the back, and hopefully we'll be able to get the steering back. Just tighten those 2 brass screws. It says don't tighten the other collars inside those coming out of the valve, just the nuts. Okay, just tighten the 2 nuts back up, and I think what that's going to do is allow I think before loosening those, it helps the fluid just run fluid through the system, and then you tighten those back up, and I'm hoping that's going to give you pressurized steering back. Alright, now we're back up on the helm. Here it goes. I'm going to start steering it back and forth, see if we got the rudder action. It's moving?
Yep.
Feels nice. It feels normal. Feels good. Everything's moving. So
You turn the wheel and this thing starts moving.
as soon as I move it. Well, now it's time to go through and tighten all the bolts, hoses, and should be all done. Put everything back together.